Hello again, listeners. Today I was wondering, have you ever had any opposition? You know, you might have been out there trying to plant a seed or maybe doing some witnessing, and somebody gave you some opposition, but maybe you got criticism because someone didn't share your view or values or whatever. Well, I was looking at the time that Jesus healed on the Sabbath. Jesus was committed to show compassion to the needy. The Jewish people back then observed the Sabbath, and it was a sign of their covenant with God. This shows Jesus was moved with compassion for people, who were sick. I'm going to read Luke 13:10 and 11. And he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bowed together, and could in no wise lift up herself. Jesus was highly respected as a teacher back then, among many of the people. And he was teaching in a synagogue on the Sabbath. And this woman who came in had been afflicted for 18 years. Sometimes sickness is the work of the demonic realm. Now I'm going to read Luke 13:12 and 13. And when Jesus saw her, he called her to him, and said unto her, Woman, thou art loosed from thine infirmity. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and glorified God. The scripture does not say that she was coming to see Jesus, to ask him for healing. He noticed her and called her over and loosed her, set her free. She was set free from the demon and this physical burden she had had. You can only imagine how knotted up her muscles were, and her back, had to be deteriorated. Yet she was restored in an instant. Woo! She praised God. Her life was changed that quick because of the compassion of Jesus and divine healing power. As Christians, it is important to seek God when a miracle is needed. Prayer, praise, and trusting his goodness will help us through tough times. Now I'm going to read Luke 13:14. And the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation, because that Jesus had healed on the Sabbath day, and said unto the people, There are 6 days in which men ought to work. In them therefore come and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day. You can imagine that, there was a lot going on here. The healed woman was praising God, and, there was the controversy of healing on the Sabbath. The leader didn't speak directly to Jesus, but spoke to the people. He asserted that Jesus had wrongly healed on the Sabbath, and she should have been healed on another day. Okay, I'm going to read Luke 13:15 through 17 now. The Lord then answered him and said, Thou hypocrite, doth not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or his ass from the stall, and lead him away to watering? And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, who Satan hath bound to these 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath day? And when he had said these things, all his adversaries were ashamed, and all the people rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. Jesus confronted his accusers directly, calling them hypocrites. They could allow compassionate treatment of animals on the Sabbath. They could allow a thirsty donkey to drink water on the Sabbath, but not help a suffering woman with her affliction. This reminds me of the scripture in Mark. Let's see, Mark 2:23. I think 23 through 27. I'm gonna read that next. And it came to pass that he went through the cornfields of the Sabbath day, on the Sabbath day, and his disciples began as they went to pluck the ears of corn. And the Pharisees said unto him, Behold, why do they on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful? And he said unto them, Have ye never read what David did when he had need, and he was hungered, he and they that were with him? How he went into the house of God in the days of Abiathar the high priest, and did eat the shewbread, which is not lawful to eat but for the priest, and gave also to them which were with him. And he said unto them, The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. So that's actually Mark 2:23 through 28. Just a couple of quick notes on that. As you know, Jesus and his disciples were hungry. It was Sunday, and he let them eat some corn, out there in the field. They picked some corn, but that shewbread that they were talking about, was like consecrated bread that was just for the priest. I guess I'll go ahead into this next one, Mark 3:1 through 6. And he entered again into the synagogue, and there was a man there which had a withered hand, and they watched him, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. And he saith unto the man which had the withered hand, Stand forth. And he saith unto them, Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days, or to do evil, to save life or to kill? But they held their peace. And when he had looked round about on them with anger, being grieved for the hardness of their hearts, he saith unto the man, Stretch forth thy hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored whole as the other. And the Pharisees went forth, and straightway took counsel with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. I think here, Jesus knew that the Pharisees were really watching him, and he knew it was getting ready, it was really getting closer to the time for his sacrifice on the cross, he knew that. But let's remember that the Sabbath is defined as a time of ceasing from work. In the Old Testament times, it was a sign of God's covenant with his people, Israel. Today, in these times of the new covenant, we do need to observe a regular time for rest and a time to praise and worship him. Let's remember his goodness and compassion will help us through times of sickness as we seek him. When Jesus walked the earth, he had compassion on people because of their spiritual need for redemption and forgiveness. He also had it for those who were sick. Okay, guys, until next time.